All right, so now go ahead and look at example 1, pause the video and use your formula for pi r squared to find the surface area, and then come back to make sure that you got the correct answer. All right, so you should have just found that the surface area is 256 pi. Notice that the units are squared because we're dealing with area and not volume here, okay? Now let's go ahead and continue on to the next page. So example 2, all right, we have surface area of a sphere is 20.25 pi, okay? So for this, we're gonna do 20.25 pi equals 4 pi r squared. I would highly recommend converting the 20.25 into a fraction. So 20 and 1/4, so 81 over 4, 81 pi over 4 equals 4 pi r squared. Go ahead and pause and then come back to make sure that you solved this correctly. All right, so the pi's cancel. All right, then I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and dividing by 4 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/4. So now I have 81 over 16 equals r squared. And now I'm going to take the square root of both sides, so I get 9 over 4 equals r. Okay, and now we have to actually answer what the question is asking. So what is the diameter? So I'm going to multiply diameter is equal to 2r. So I'm going to do 2 times 9 over 4. And that's when we get 9 over 2, which simplifies to 4.5 centimeters. All right. Friendly reminder, fractions are friends. You convert the decimals into a fraction. It will make life so much easier. All right. Now let's go ahead and continue to page number 19 to talk about volume of a sphere. So for volume of a sphere, all right, we have been using the general formula base area times height. So if you look at this diagram, can you see how they are mapping quite a few very small pyramids, okay, into the sphere? So for a pyramid, we have 1/3, right? And then the base area of a pyramid, if you can see, the bases of each pyramid are going to be the surface of the sphere. And we found the surface area of the sphere to be 4 pi r squared. And then times the height of the pyramid, and the height of the pyramid is the radius. So hopefully you can see where the 1/3 and the 4 are coming from. And so this can be rewritten as 4 pi r cubed over 3, or if you prefer, you can write it as 4/3 pi r cubed. Either or. All right. So now go ahead and pause the video, work out example 4. Make sure that you pay attention to the fact that they gave you diameter and not radius. All right. And then come back and check your work. Go ahead and please find page number 17 in your notes. Today we're going to be talking about surface area and volume of a sphere. So to kick us off, let's look at the formula for surface area. So as you can see here, the baseball, if it is unraveled, makes 4 circles. And what's the area of a circle? Pi r squared. So the surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. A hemisphere then, so the surface area of a hemisphere, which is how much of a sphere? 1/2. So that would be 2 pi r squared. Okay? All right, so you should have gotten 243 pi over 2 inches cubed. So please make sure that you used the radius of 9 over 2, okay? And then when you're cubing that, that's where I'm getting this line of work. So if you need to pause and kind of follow along, please do so. But really all you're doing is substituting in that 9 over 2 for the radius. All right, now go ahead and move over to page number 20, and you can copy all of these triangles. You might want to just like pause and copy them, and then you can come back. Okay, so now we're going to talk about special right triangles. So the first one is a 45, 45, 90. Okay, and so that is an isosceles triangle. So the side lengths would be A, and then the hypotenuse is A root 2. So For example, if we had an isosceles triangle and we did a squared plus a squared equals c squared, I would get 2a squared equals c squared. And then if I square root both sides, I would get a root 2 equals c, which is where this a root 2 is coming from. Okay, so this just means that we don't have to use the Pythagorean theorem, and you get to use the ratios of the sides. So let's say that you were given that this side was 5. Then this side would also be 5, and the hypotenuse would be 5 root 2. Let's say that you were given that this was 12 root 2. Well, then you can come in and you can label this is a, and a root 2. So you can say that a root 2 is equal to 12 root 2. And then if we're solving for a, we would divide both sides by root 2. So we would get 12 and 12. Now let's look at a couple more. Let's say that this was 5 root 2. Well, this is a, so we know this side is also 5 root 2, and then this is a root 2. So I would take a, which equals 5 root 2, and I'd multiply both sides by root 2. So then you'd get a root 2 equals 10. Then let's do another one. Let's say this was 6. So if that side length is 6, then we have a root 2 equals 6, and we would divide both sides by root 2. Don't forget, then you have to rationalize. So now we have a equals 6 over root 2 times root 2 over root 2. And so then we're getting 6 root 2 over 2. So then we're getting 3 root 2 for both of the legs. All right. And so one thing that's important to note here, right, is like then you can work in the other direction. Like 3 root 2 times root 2 is 6. Okay. And so that's the relationship between the 45, 45, 90s. Now let's look at the 30, 60, 90s. So for those, all right, the short leg is going to be opposite of the 30-degree angle, and that will be A. The hypotenuse, which is always opposite of the right angle, will be 2a, and the long leg will be a root 3. And that's the ratio of the sides. So let's say that you were given the hypotenuse was 8. Then the hypotenuse is 2a. The short leg would then be 4, because we divided by 2, and then the long leg would be 4 root 3. Okay, now let's do another one. So now let's look. Let's say that we were given the long leg as 6. So if 6 is equal to a root 3, then we would divide both sides by root 3. And we would do 6 divided by root 3. Then we would get 6 root 3 over 3. So we would get 2 root 3 for the short leg. And then how do we get from the short leg to the hypotenuse? Well, if this is a, right, this was a root 3, we've got 2a. And so 2 root 3 times 2 is 4 root 3. Okay. Now let's do another one. So let's say we were given that the short leg was root 3. Well, then the hypotenuse is 2 times that, so it would be 2 root 3. And the long leg is root 3 times the short leg, so we would get 3. Okay, so this is a more efficient way of finding the side lengths of a triangle when you have either 45, 45, 90 or 30, 60, 90. And we'll go over this next class. Have a good weekend. Bye, y'all.